The rain hammered softly against the windows of Buckingham Palace on the morning everything changed. Inside the royal residence, the atmosphere felt unusually tense, even by royal standards. Courtiers moved through the marble corridors with lowered voices, and every conversation seemed to stop the moment someone important entered the room. Something major was happening behind closed doors, and only a handful of people knew the full truth. At the center of it all sat Prince William, calm and unreadable, reviewing documents that would permanently reshape the balance of power inside the monarchy. 4 years, the future king had waited patiently while others maneuvered around him, quietly building influence behind palace walls. But now the waiting was over. A decision had finally been made, and it would place one of the royal family's most valuable private estates directly into William's hands. The transfer was not simply about money. It was about control, about legacy, about who would shape the future of the monarchy after decades of internal tension, old grudges, and carefully hidden rivalries. And according to insiders, no one took the news harder than Queen Camilla and the people closest to her. 4 years, Camilla's family had enjoyed a level of access to royal life that many believed would continue indefinitely. Invitations flowed naturally. Connections opened doors. Business opportunities appeared where few expected them. Whether officially acknowledged or not, being connected to the Queen consort carried enormous influence. It changed how people answered phone calls. It changed who returned emails. It changed who received invitations to private dinners and charity events attended by Britain's elite. But royal privilege has always depended on one fragile thing: proximity to power. And now that power was shifting. The estate at the center of the storm had long represented far more than land and buildings. Spread across enormous sections of the British countryside, the property included historic homes, farmland, investment holdings, conservation areas, and luxury developments that generated extraordinary annual revenue. For generations, it had quietly funded the lifestyle and operations of the heir to the throne. When ownership officially transferred to William, palace insiders reportedly understood the deeper message immediately. The future of the monarchy was no longer theoretical. It had begun. The change was especially significant because William approached royal responsibility very differently from his father, King Charles III. Charles had always been deeply emotional about architecture, heritage, and tradition. William, however, had developed a reputation for something colder and more modern. He preferred structure, efficiency, accountability. And once the estate became his responsibility, he wasted no time reviewing every contract, advisory position, and informal arrangement connected to it. That was when tensions exploded. According to palace rumors, several individuals with long-standing social or professional ties to Camilla's circle suddenly found themselves excluded from projects and discussions they had once considered secure. Consultants who expected renewals allegedly stopped receiving calls. Social invitations reportedly dried up. Long-standing assumptions about access began collapsing one by one. Inside royal circles, the message became impossible to ignore: William was tightening the gates. Some believed he was simply modernizing operations and reducing unnecessary influence. Others saw something more personal beneath the surface. After all, William had spent most of his life carrying the emotional scars left behind by the collapse of his parents' marriage. The public breakdown between Princess Diana and Charles shaped not only the monarchy but William himself. While he has always remained publicly disciplined, many royal observers believe those memories never truly faded. The future king understood better than anyone how deeply the past still haunted public perceptions of the royal family. And as he prepared for the enormous responsibilities waiting ahead, sources claimed he had become determined to ensure that royal institutions could never again appear vulnerable to outside influence or family favoritism. Whether fair or unfair, Camilla's relatives became caught in that effort. The first signs of trouble emerged quietly. A luxury hospitality proposal connected indirectly to figures associated with Camilla's wider social network reportedly failed to move forward after internal reviews. Then came whispers that estate managers had begun re-examining older agreements involving land use, consultancy work, and financial arrangements tied to various royal properties. None of it appeared illegal. None of it produced public scandal. But the direction was unmistakable. William's team was cleaning house. The impact inside Clarence House was immediate. Staff members allegedly noticed a dramatic change in mood around Camilla. Meetings became shorter. Private conversations lasted longer. The usually composed Queen consort appeared increasingly frustrated behind closed doors. Friends close to her reportedly believed she felt blindsided. For decades, Camilla had fought one of the hardest image battles in modern royal history. After Diana's death, public anger toward her reached levels that many thought impossible to overcome. Yet slowly, through patience and careful public service, she rebuilt her standing. By the time Charles became king, she had finally secured acceptance from much of the British public. But acceptance, she was now discovering, did not necessarily guarantee lasting institutional power. Because the monarchy ultimately revolves around bloodline succession. And in that system, William's authority carried a weight even the queen consort could not easily challenge. As tensions mounted, stories of private disagreements reportedly spread between royal households. Nothing public ever surfaced directly, of course. The monarchy survives through silence. Palace officials understand that the appearance of unity is often just as important as unity itself. But behind the scenes, the atmosphere allegedly became icy. William remained firm. Several longtime advisors close to the Prince of Wales believed he viewed the estate transition as a defining moment in his preparation for kingship. Every decision would send a signal about the kind of monarch he intended to become one day. Showing hesitation now, they argued, would only encourage future interference. So he continued forward. The most painful consequences reportedly involved individuals who had grown accustomed to operating comfortably within royal-connected networks for years. Some felt frozen out almost overnight. Others feared their influence had permanently evaporated. And anger toward Camilla herself quietly began growing. According to insiders, certain members of her wider family circle believed she should have been able to stop what was happening. After all, she was the king's wife. If anyone could persuade Charles to intervene, surely it would be her. But that assumption underestimated how delicate the balance between Charles and William had become. By this stage in his reign, Charles understood that preserving stability with his heir was absolutely essential. The monarchy had already endured years of turbulence involving public scandals, family divisions, and relentless media scrutiny. The last thing the institution needed was a visible power struggle between king and future king. So when pressure reportedly mounted for Charles to soften William's actions, the king faced an impossible choice. Support his wife's frustrations. Or support the future of the crown. Those close to the palace believed he chose the latter. One senior insider allegedly described Charles's position with brutal simplicity. He knows the monarchy cannot survive another internal civil war. That realization left Camilla increasingly isolated. The emotional strain reportedly became severe during several private family conversations. At one point, palace staff allegedly overheard raised voices behind closed doors after a difficult phone call involving one of Camilla's relatives. Though details remain unconfirmed, insiders claim the discussion centered on fears that years of loyalty and discretion were now being rewarded with humiliation. For Camilla, the situation carried painful personal irony. She had spent decades trying to prove she belonged inside the royal institution. Yet now the same institution appeared to be drawing invisible lines around who truly counted as part of the monarchy's future. And those lines did not favor her family. Meanwhile, William continued projecting calm discipline in public. He attended events, delivered speeches, and carried out royal engagements without revealing any hint of internal conflict. Observers noted how controlled he appeared throughout the controversy. That restraint only increased speculation. Some royal commentators believed William's silence was strategic. By refusing to engage publicly, he prevented critics from framing the dispute as emotional revenge or personal hostility. Officially, every decision could simply be described as professional restructuring and estate modernization. Unofficially, however, many suspected deeper motivations. The memory of Diana still hovered over everything. People close to William have often described how fiercely protective he became of his mother's legacy as he grew older. He rarely speaks about private pain publicly, but those who know him reportedly understand how profoundly the events of the 1990s shaped his worldview. To William, preserving the monarchy's credibility may have become inseparable from protecting the legacy Diana left behind for him and his children. And that meant eliminating anything that could create perceptions of favoritism, divided loyalty, or competing family influence around royal assets. The estate transition therefore became symbolic of something much larger, the arrival of a new royal era. An era less sentimental, less forgiving, and far more controlled. Inside aristocratic circles, reactions were mixed. Some quietly admired William's decisiveness, arguing that modern monarchies survive only when boundaries remain clear. Others believed the speed and severity of the changes risked creating bitterness that could eventually erupt into public embarrassment. Because royal history has always proven one dangerous truth. disgruntled insiders can become extremely unpredictable. That fear reportedly intensified after rumors spread that certain members of Camilla's wider network possessed knowledge of old private royal matters stretching back decades. Most likely, nothing explosive would ever emerge publicly. The monarchy has survived countless rumors before. Still, nervousness inside palace walls reportedly grew. The greatest threat to royal stability has rarely come from outsiders. More often, it comes from wounded people on the inside who suddenly feel abandoned. As months passed, Camilla allegedly made multiple attempts to reduce tensions and reopen communication channels with William's household. Yet sources claimed those efforts produced little progress. The future king remained polite but distant. His decisions, it appeared, were final. That reality forced everyone around the monarchy to confront an uncomfortable truth. The transition of power from Charles to William had already begun long before any formal coronation could take place. Not publicly, not constitutionally, but practically. William was increasingly acting like a man preparing to inherit not just a throne, but total institutional control. And many within the royal establishment were already adjusting accordingly. Senior palace aides reportedly recognized that the younger generation of royals represented the monarchy's long-term survival. Public popularity strongly favored William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. Their image as stable, modern parents resonated powerfully both in Britain and internationally. That popularity translated into influence. Influence translated into authority. And authority eventually reshaped the institution around itself. For Camilla, perhaps the hardest realization was understanding that no amount of personal closeness to Charles could fully protect her position anymore. The monarchy always moves toward the future heir. Slowly at first, then all at once. William understood that better than anyone. By the end of the year, insiders claimed the atmosphere between the two royal households had settled into a tense but functional coldness. Public appearances remained professional. No visible confrontations occurred. The royal machine continued operating exactly as designed. But beneath the polished surface, relationships had changed permanently. Trust had eroded. Lines had been drawn. And nearly everyone inside palace walls understood who now held the stronger hand. The irony is that none of this may ever be officially acknowledged. The royal family specializes in burying conflict beneath ceremony, tradition, and carefully staged smiles. Historians often discover the real stories decades later through letters, diaries, and private accounts. But even without official confirmation, observers can sense when power shifts inside a monarchy. This was one of those moments. A future king stepped forward and asserted control over one of the crown's most important private institutions. A queen discovered the limits of her influence. And an entire network of people who once felt secure suddenly realized the royal world they depended on was disappearing faster than they ever imagined. Because in the end, royal history follows one rule above all others. The crown always protects the bloodline first.